Terry Kallis is going to begin to talk about his Yorke Biomass energy project, which is based in Ardrossan on the Yorke Peninsula. And Terry has been working in the energy industry for 30 years. He understands electricity really well, and he's built a lot of projects in the past. I think Terry was responsible for the first wind farm in South Australia. He's built interconnectors. He understands electricity. But he's also working on developing energy projects. So the Yorke Biomass one, which he's going to talk about, he's also involved in a wind farm on Yorke Peninsula. He used to be a councillor on the South Australian Chamber of Mines. He's been involved in geothermal energy as well, and he was last year named the South Australian Energy Professional of the Year. So I'd like to welcome Terry.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you this morning. And Catherine, thank you for that very kind introduction. I'm going to take you through a project that's still under development. It's called the Yorke Biomass Energy Project. What I want to do is take you through an agenda, which firstly, better put that up. That's a disclaimer. I don't want you to go away and think about investing just yet, although it's not open for investment at this point. That's the outline. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to show you a video so you can actually get a sense of what it is we're talking about. And that video is a video of a plant in Sangüesa in Spain, in the Navarra region near Pamplona, owned by Acciona. And Acciona have EPC exclusivity on this particular project. So what we're doing is modelling on that project. It's a 25 megawatt project. Very quickly, there's some unique features about this project. One that's not up there, in fact, I should draw your attention to, and that is that this project is actually born out of the wind farm. Catherine talked about a very large wind farm on the Yorke Peninsula. That's not far away post the election from securing some offtake. Once that's done, toward the end of the year, we'll have full commercial close, and we'll end up building in South Australia on the Yorke Peninsula the largest wind farm in in Australia. In fact, in the Southern Hemisphere. So it's 190 odd turbines to be built. Because you have wind farm development where the hosts get significant monies, that creates tension between those who don't get monies. So one of the things we did right at the beginning of this project was try to think about, that's the wind farm that is, to think about how we could spread the joy, for another, better expression. And what we came up with was an economic way of doing that by looking at a biomass project. So this project started originally with the owners, the two owners, a group that I lead together with the minority shareholders of that project, together with Senvion, who are the majority owners, 80% of that project. In the end, they didn't want to pursue it, so I said, well, how about letting me have a go at the biomass project? So that's what we've done. So since then, you'll see I've put together a project that I like to think deals with a couple of issues. One is brings the farmers in who have the supply in the right way. And the second thing is deals with a question that really has always thwarted biomass projects, and that is, how do people see that they get a fair deal? Because quite often what you see is that a developer will come along and say, I'd love your biomass supply. It's currently a liability sitting there for you. As soon as someone says it's worth something, suddenly it becomes worth gold. No one trusts anyone, and nothing works. So hopefully you'll see a little bit about how I'm going to cover that. I'm not going to go through every slide. I do have some documentation over there. So there's 3 different documents and a business card for people to collect, which explains the project, goes through FAQs, and the latest article on the project that's in eco-generation. But the key things in this project are a supply company owned by those who provide the supply, and an open book negotiation process to arrive at a deal. What I'd like to do now is just move on to the video.
Acciona Energia, a leading company in the field of renewable energies, owns and operates a biomass plant to produce electricity from straw combustion. It is a 25 megawatt facility capable of generating 200 million kilowatt hours per year. It operates 8,000 hours a year. It burns 160,000 tons of straw, and 50 million euros were invested in its construction. Acciona Energia's biomass plant is located on the industrial estate of the town of Sangüesa in Navarre, in northern Spain. It consists of 3 buildings: the warehouse, the boiler house, and the turbine house and office area. Acciona Energia wanted a plant that would stand out in architectural terms. To do this, the architects came up with a steel roof and a unified design for the different buildings. Large polycarbonate skylights were installed, plus a visitor's gallery that allows the production process to be observed without interfering with it. The process that ends with the production of electricity in the plant begins with the collection of straw in the fields. The bales are then taken from straw lofts on the farms to the biomass plant. 3 overhead cranes unload the bales. Each bale is shredded on entry to the boiler, and the straw falls through the vibrating grill. The straw combustion heats the water that flows through the walls of the boiler and converts it into steam. This steam, at 540 degrees centigrade, is sent to a superheater and then to a turbine connected to a generator that produces electricity. The electricity generated is transformed to 66 kilovolts in a substation located on the plant site. It is then transmitted via underground cable to the network substation in Sangüesa, from where it is sent to the national grid. In the meantime, the steam that has passed through the turbine is piped to a condenser. There, the steam is cooled by the action of the water taken from a channel that runs through the industrial estate, and it is again converted into water, which is transported through pipes to the walls of the boiler to start the process all over again. The water in the open circuit that has been used for cooling is returned to the channel. The biomass plant of Sangüesa is beneficial for the environment. Every year, it avoids the emission of almost 200,000 tons of CO2 from thermal power stations. The gases from the straw combustion pass through a smoke filter before they are emitted to the atmosphere. The residue and the ash from the combustion process are sent to hoppers and are later used as agricultural fertilizer. As a result of its size, the technologies used and the way the fuel is handled, this biomass plant is a pioneer experience in Southern Europe and in the use of straw as fuel to produce energy. Its entry into service should favour the implementation of other biomass plants in our vicinity. Otherwise, the objectives set for biomass in the Spanish Renewables Plan for the period 2005-2010 will not be complied with, nor those contained in the White Paper on Renewables in Europe. These programs aim to restrict CO2 emissions, reduce the energy dependence of Spain and Europe, and create a productive sector in the field that is oriented towards energy production. Acciona Energia has demonstrated its desire to contribute to these objectives through the construction of this facility, which is already a major world benchmark in the use of biomass for energy generation.
So that gives you a little bit of a feel of what it is we're trying to do. Very briefly, where's the project? You can sort of see it there on those who know the Yorke Peninsula. That's the nominal catchment area for up to 120,000 tonnes of stubble or low quality straw. We're looking at 15% moisture content or lower. Why there? prime reason was actually the wind farm, but why Ardrossan? Basically, it's ideally located in an industrial precinct nearby, and lots of road transport. So the real issue for these sorts of developments are air emissions, road transport, and in this particular case, water cooling out of the sea. For those who know where Ardrossan is, and where the storage is for Viterra, and where the quarry is, it's just in that location there. And there's a substation, I'm not sure, it's just got the pointer. That's a substation there, so a very short connection, that'll be an underground cable, and the whole plant and lots of area fits in there. So that's what we're doing. The thing I'd like to spend a bit of time on, and bear with me, it's a bit complex, is this diagram, because it's really the essence of the business model that we're using for the project to overcome those two issues. How do you get people attracted and involved? Farmers understand cooperatives, so what we're having is not a cooperative, but a cooperative-like facility. So on this side here, we'll have, go back, here is Yorke Biomass Supply Company. They'll be owned and operated by the farmers and suppliers of biomass. Yorke Biomass Energy is the, the company that owns the plant. There'll be one contract between there and there. So unlike some of the co-ops where you've got a market that you sell to and you're open to that market's price, there'll be an exclusive arrangement between there and back again. So you've got a captured market for tonnage, because you have to design the plant to fit a particular size, and you've got a captured commitment coming back the other way on price. So once you're in that biomass co-op, you've got commitments. Open book process, what we're going to do is put all the numbers on the table. I've already done that, in fact, with a interim board that I've used as literally a sounding board to come up with the design of the project. And not only that, we're looking at having minimum expectation over here of 12% IRR, minimum expectation of $85 a tonne. And anything we make in between there that's above that, we will look to have a profit share arrangement. Similar sort of thing, I won't dwell on it on the customer side. Typically you sell to your friendly AGL or Origin, but it's not the only way to sell into the market. And as you see microgrids and some of the future changes in the electricity market happen, it might turn a few things on its head. I used a line when this project first came out as the Uber of the electricity sector, and I'll show you a little bit more about that later. In other words, the idea of supplying direct to customers. So the plan basically is we sign up what we call exclusive negotiation agreements here, and then once we've got a sufficient number of those, we assign them over here. They are owned by this company, and this company basically negotiates, and we have an independent broker sitting there, honest broker, which is KPMG, that we've selected to take us through that open book process to settle on price. And we'll know very, very quickly whether or not that works. I won't go once again through that. There are three pieces of what I call collateral that we use. There's a project fact sheet, frequently asked questions, and there's also a recent article over there that you can take away and get a bit more detail on the project. What we do with the exclusive negotiation agreement is in fact that. It's simply just a commitment from the farmers to say that they will sign up for the next 3 years and will not sell their biomass to another person looking to do what I'm doing, produce electricity. They can sell it for any other reason, bedding, for chicken litter, if it's any other reason, as I say. And that's stage one of the process. Stage two of the process is once we've got sufficient capacity, we'll design supply, so we'll design the market around that. We'll go back, assign the supply arrangements, ENAs, to the supply company, and then undertake a negotiation. So we're putting a commitment basically of $85 a tonne minimum, going up to CPI for 20 years. You don't have to have the 20 years. You can have 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever you want. But you also need to know that you may not have the same opportunity to renew that. That'll be back to the supply company to determine the rules of how that happens. Some of the benefits, just let me quickly go through those as we see them. This is far more capital intensive, employment intensive than a wind farm project. You're getting short on time. Okay. Lots of economic spin-offs. In fact, if you look at the wind farm, the direct spin-offs are about 4 million per annum. This is closer to 6. We think it's a tool that farmers can use for their sort of long-term sustainability in their farming practice, so there's lots of opportunities there. I won't go through the project timetable that's in there. Where I am at the moment is right at the very end of signing up supply agreements, and those who may be from the Yorke or know the Yorke will see within the next 2 weeks there'll be full-page colour ads advertising, seeking suppliers who want to sign up as part of the final arrangements. Won't go through that either, other than to say if I did supply direct to customers, there's 6,000 odd customers sitting at the end of that connection point that I showed you, and I'm working with SA Power Networks, so the old ETSA, the distributor, to look at how we might be able to do that and sort of shake the tree a little bit in the market. Last slide that I'll put up is that community consultation, and a lot of that. I've run 4 sessions already, advertised in the paper quite a bit, and as I say, at the bottom end you'll see there's a lot of collateral there, and I always reinforce when I do these projects that we're at the beginning of the project, not at the end, so there's an opportunity for people to shape part of the project.
Yeah, so we have time for about 5 minutes of questions.
Sorry, yeah.
What's concentrated consulting? How many hours a year are you going to run, and how much storage have you got for store?
Well, the storage is probably on site probably about a week and a bit. Outside, that's yet to be determined, but typically you have areas where people can store beyond that and will. There's people actually starting to store right now in the anticipation they'll supply in a couple of years' time. How far it runs, I mean, these projects are between 90% and 95% sort of availability. So if you work out 8,760 hours a year, you can calculate the number, but it's over 8,000 hours a year. So it is something that would typically be seen as a baseload operation. Yeah, it's what we're talking about is not the straw, we're talking about the stubble, basically, or low quality. So we've estimated that catchment area that I showed you there to be about 120,000 tonnes. Sorry, we've estimated we can, if we had less than half of that, we would get 120,000 tonnes. The project's really aiming for about 90,000 tonnes, so we're looking at probably a 15 megawatt development is the likely scenario. Yep.
Did you look at being able to utilise the residual heat for anything?
We haven't gone into detail, but we have had some thoughts about what we might do there. And we've had a couple of people approach us. We've also had people approach us about solar. One thing I didn't say was that when we did the wind farm development, we put up 4 100-metre met masts, which is still there, measuring wind. We also measured the solar resource there, so there's parameters on there. So we know that quite well too.
Any idea the calorific value of the straw?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. What I can tell you is about the same calorific value as Lee Creek coal. So it's actually quite high. I'll get the numbers and come back to you. Sorry.
Jerry, I'm just wondering about the economics of it in terms of cents per kilowatt hour you can produce power out. To what extent you rely on government, of course, subsidies, but I mean it's offsets against the cost of carbon, I suppose, to make the whole thing work.
Yeah, so good question, because these projects actually don't work without it. So if I said, maybe if I explained to you what do you need in revenue for a wind farm, in South Australia it's $95 and below, basically bundled price, renewable RECs and electricity. This sort of project is more like $125, so that's what you're competing with. So unless you can get some capital contribution towards it, or have a retailer who is willing to value your base load, your 24/7 load, higher than otherwise, that they would with intermittent, then it becomes difficult. So the real opportunity for this project is that it's the first of its kind, as I'm aware of, in Australia. Certainly the first of its kind with the model that we're proposing, which has got a very strong community flavour, and it's on the radar right now with ARENA and with the CFC. For those who, I'm sure everyone here is aware that CFC has come up with a couple $100 million bioenergy fund. And, I've been talking to those parties who are looking to manage that fund, and I think they'll be coming out with expressions of interest in June of this year. So, yeah, but it requires a capital injection and a subsidy beyond the renewable certificate.
I think we have time for one.
One over there.
We've got three now.
Just very quickly, your $85 a tonne is actual land cost for the straw?
Yes, so delivered to however people want to deliver it. And what we're doing is we're encouraging aggregators, because as an individual you look at it and you might say, oh, it doesn't work for me, but there are people who are willing to aggregate, and I've already got some very large suppliers already signed up who also can be aggregators.
Does your plant only geared up to run on wet scale at the moment?
Well, basically, wheat, barley, that sort of thing, yes. So it's got a very tight tolerance. We're not looking to throw, other forms of waste in there, so council waste, that sort of thing. So it's designed around a very simple, boiler.
I think you'll agree that it's a different business model. It engenders trust, and I wish you well with your development, so thank you very much.
Thanks, Catherine.